that thing is definitely coming to your house in 10 years because you accidentally misgendered someone in your own head by accident. Welcome back, beautiful and amazing human beings. My name's Luke Rudkowski here of wearechange.org. And there's a lot of absolutely wild and crazy news to get into today as the Biden administration has new taxes that they are going to be levying against the people to, of course, finance the larger proxy conflicts all over the world, as the United States just put a major down payment on the future of conflict all over this world, as other elected officials are literally talking about the collapse and fall of the West, which culturally, I think there's an argument to make here, especially with all the latest protests that we have been seeing throughout this country. What's really going on here? What's the larger perspective that we will need to understand here when it comes to moving forward with our lives? Well, we hope to answer that question here in this independent media broadcast. If you like the shirt that I'm wearing, you could get it on thebestpoliticalshirts.com. And the clip that we played in the beginning of this broadcast just highlights latest and greatest technological advancements when it comes to robotics and flamethrowers. Personally, I like flamethrowers. I have one. I use it. But you mix that in with artificial intelligence, superior, vast intelligence and comprehensive skills, better than any other person on this face of the earth many times over. And in my opinion, you have a recipe for disaster. But hey, with the way that things are going, that's already happening anyway, as of course, financially, a lot of people are being ruined. Walmart has just announced that they are removing self-checkouts from some of their stores, mainly because people keep stealing. This as more and more Americans are living in horrendous conditions, 20 million of which, according to the latest report by the EPA, live by toxic wasteland that have been linked to infant deaths and, of course, other diseases and sicknesses, as our drinking and food supply is being poisoned every single day with the stamp of approval from the federal government that now is looking to increase capital gains taxes up to 44.6%, the steepest increase since 1922. This, as all over the Western world, the taxes have been increasing dramatically. Debt has been soaring. This says the government demands more money from you so they could finance international geopolitical conflicts, as it looks like two of the last presidents of the United States, Joe Biden and Donald Trump, worked together and passed what looks like a huge, nearly $100 billion military spending bill, as Joe Biden just announced that the first weapons will be sent to Ukraine in just hours from now, as a lot of significant military equipment is being sent into the region that sadly will lead to more loss of life of Slavic people on both sides of this conflict. As the President of the United States just announced this to the nation:
I'm making sure the shipments start right away. In the next few hours, literally a few hours, we're going to begin sending in equipment to Ukraine for air defense munitions, for artillery, for rocket systems, and armored vehicles. You know, this package is literally an investment, not only in Ukraine's security, but in Europe's security, in our own security. We're sending Ukraine equipment from our own stockpiles. Then we'll replenish those stockpiles with new products made by American companies here in America. Patriot missiles made in Arizona, Javelins made in Alabama, artillery shells made in Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Texas. In other words, we're helping Ukraine.
This, as of course, there's a provision within the $61 billion that says that Ukraine will actually have to pay this money back if they win this conflict, which a lot of people, especially scholars and geopolitical experts, say is very rare. As just recently, a couple hours ago, the Russians broke through the Ukrainian front line and captured a very strategically important town. As continuously for many weeks and months now, the Russians have been slowly making progressive gains on a lot of Ukrainian towns and cities that the Ukrainians have not been able to successfully defend. This, as we are ever brought closer to the perpetual potentiality of a full-on global conflict, which would endanger the world. As we had some very telling comments from the president of Russia, that literally is describing the fall of the West, which he sees inevitable. Why is that? We're going to talk about that in a little bit. Before we do, we wanted to remind you about Unfiltered.com, that when you sign up, you actually get really cool things, including a special video report for members right after this one, centered around giving you the best, most accurate, incredible information to empower you as best as we can, and some really cool activities and fun things to do. As of course, members of Unfiltered.com 2 weeks ago got free tickets to the Mind Festival, where myself, Jimmy Dore, and Alex Jones will be on stage in just a few days from now, this Saturday, 5 p.m. Eastern at the Vulcan Theater. Use promo code Luke to get a significant discount on your tickets. And the following day, April 28th, 1 p.m. local time in Austin, Texas, we're doing a group nature hike just for members of LukeUnfiltered.com, as these are one of many perks that you will get available for you just by simply signing up to LukeUnfiltered.com. If you haven't done that yet, what are you waiting for? Click the link down in the description below, as of course you also get the ability to call in to our live show, a live show that we're doing later on today on this YouTube channel, 6 p.m. Eastern, with Jay Dyer in studio. As of course, as a member of LukeUnfiltered.com, you actually get the ability to call into the show and be a part of the broadcast. Yesterday, we had an incredible caller with an awesome t-shirt, a summer from New Mexico, that called in and asked a really cool question that sparked some really interesting conversations. You could be today's caller just by simply signing up to LukeUnfiltered.com and then going on to our Telegram channel, where, of course, the conversation continues in real time during our live podcast taping of thebestpoliticalshow.com. Again, LukeUnfiltered.com is where you find all of this. New video coming your way. Nature hikes all throughout the United States, maybe even the world. I'm going to be organizing some really cool things. Anytime I travel now, we're doing a nature hike. And that's what your memberships build. It builds people networking, people going out there, touching grass, being healthy, and becoming the best versions of themselves, which you could help incentivize, which you could help build and grow just by signing up. Enough people sign up, I'm going to do some really fun things for you guys. And again, it all matters, especially when you vote with your dollar, especially when you incentivize and you make independent media grow. We've been going through some tough financial times. Your support is more needed than ever. And truly, I can't thank you guys enough. Sign up right now on LukeUnfiltered.com. Click the link down in the description below. As of course, we have some very interesting statements from the current president of Russia, Vladimir Putin, that described how, quote, liberalism will be the West's downfall, specifically describing in an address to his nation what he sees as the current situation in the Western world.
History shows that those countries are able to develop consistently and independently, which preserve the national identity and unique features of their peoples, who treasure the memory of their ancestors while paying due respect to other cultures and traditions. This attitude is particularly important today, as a multipolar world is being shaped. The global balance of forces is shifting towards the world's majority. New powerhouses are actively consolidating. Allow me to emphasize this. Russia stands ready to closely interact with all the interested partners in order to ensure global and regional security, to build a new multipolar world that would reflect the interests of the majority of the world's countries.
Interesting statements that definitely have you wondering about national identity, definitely have you wondering about individuals who don't like their history, don't like their own people, and have been divided against themselves with ever so divisive societal pressures that are pushing people against each other, as group cohesion is pretty much lost in the United States, especially when it comes to what's happening in our political system, as the foreign conflicts that the United States is involved in is dividing this nation. It's dividing a lot of Democrats from other fellow Democrats, and the same goes for the Republicans, as Republicans are fighting Republicans about the foreign conflicts that all of us are paying for. This, as in my opinion, the divisiveness in our society is perfectly represented at what's happening at top American universities, where at Columbia, the president, faculty, and staff all are either acquiescing or being a part of a larger protest movement about a war in the Middle East, as the Colombian president just keeps extending the number of hours that protesters have to, quote, clear their camp inside of campuses that have stopped classes from taking place, as some right-wing personalities are literally saying that the National Guard needs to be called in order to disperse these student protests, which in American history doesn't usually work out that well. Looking at you, Kent State. As, of course, some right-wing personalities have described these protesters as terrorists. Some of them say that they are aligned with terroristic organizations, as the rhetoric is, of course, heating up with the larger divisive issue, as there are some kind of radical elements that do deserve to be called out. But by and large, if you're protesting the war in the Middle East, it doesn't automatically make you aligned with, of course, terrorists, especially if you want peace in the region. And there has been hyperbolic, sensationalistic rhetoric from both sides of this larger kind of protest group here. But clearly, a lot of the leftist protesters who are using similar tactics to Occupy Wall Street and the Black Lives Matter protest clearly, culturally, are opposed to this nation, this country, its founding principles and ideas and history that, of course, they really do not like. Now, what has happened to the warping of children's mind in order to look at themselves, their nation, their country, their own skin color, and say, hey, this is bad, this is ugly, is something that I think is worth noting and deserves to have a legitimate consideration here, as, of course, I think this is what Vladimir Putin is talking about when he's describing national identity and hatred of ancestors and the destruction and ridicule of culture here domestically inside of the United States that does highlight larger problematic issues that will be coming up to the surface and are worth addressing before they boil over and becoming a major issue that leads to, of course, more division and violence in our society. We absolutely want to prevent a lot of that violence, and with that, we need to understand what's really going on here, as some people point to TikTok and the influence of foreign governments, especially when it comes to the shaping of our children's mind with dopamine-pleasing short-form content, that a lot of analysts are pointing to why there's such a larger kind of woke ideology inside of the Western world. A woke ideology that countries like Russia and China would be pushing if they believed it would lead to our downfall, which kind of makes you wonder what's really going on here. As the FBI director came out and said that banning TikTok is a national security issue, as he's describing how the Chinese government is using the data of Americans for their own geopolitical strategic purposes. Now, would they be conflating and creating algorithms meant to warp the minds, creating a more of a divisive society in the Western world to push for its downfall? Well, that's something that, of course, our intelligence agencies probably have already done, and other countries doing it to us. Yeah, that probably is happening here. Let's just be honest. Let's just be frank with us. Is there any exact evidence proving that this is happening with TikTok? No, we don't have empirical proof and evidence. All we have is circumstantial evidence on both sides of this conversation that I think is absolutely worth having. As, of course, if you control the algorithms, you control the minds of the young people in this country, that are ever so not liking this country that they are in. And whatever you might say about the United States, after traveling the world, I do have to say it is one of the best countries in the world. It's one of the freest countries in the world. And a lot of the things that we take for granted, especially when it comes to our economic prosperity, especially when it comes to our civil liberties that are being destroyed, that again aren't perfect. But in my opinion, those larger ideas, and if they're practiced in some states where they are actually respected, provide a situation where it is pretty clear that the United States is still one of the best places in the world to live in. Something that, of course, we should not be taking for granted. Something that, of course, we should cherish. Something that we should try to secure, especially when it comes to trying to emphasize larger social cohesion that is being absolutely ripped apart, especially with an open border that this administration imports people into, and then at the same time keeps warning about those same people who might come and, of course, attack us and take our lives. This, as the FBI director also just issued another chilling warning about a potential larger attack on American people on U.S. soil that is similar to the Russian concert hall attack that just happened a few weeks ago that took the lives of 144 people. Now, will there be a kind of major incident that takes a lot of innocent people's lives? Who knows? Our current events detail the larger possibility of this becoming more and more frequent. as it's not just social cohesion that threatens the future of the West, but also its economic outlook, as the United States is literally $34 trillion in debt that there's no way getting out of. And with this administration looking to tax people more, regulate them, control them more, prosperity is only going to go down. Economic opportunities are only going to be ruined that much further for the young people in this country that are becoming more disassociated, disillusioned with this country, and no longer give a damn about it. And when you have a new group of young people who don't like where they're from, who don't like this country, you have a long existential threat within your own country that threatens its own existence. That's the situation that we're in. To me, it's unfortunate. And to me, we have to do everything in our power in order to try to stop that from happening. But the exact opposite of that is actually happening. If you agree with my assessment, share this video with your friends and family members. It definitely looks like things are crumbling all around us, but that doesn't mean that your life should crumble as well. Go out there, meet people, go out hiking. You're not alone. Life is short. Live it to the fullest. Enjoy it in nature and beauty. And that's why we're doing a nature hike this Sunday. See you there in Austin, Texas. I love you guys. One more video coming your way right now on Unfiltered.com. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you, and this is why I love you guys. Stay tuned for more here on wearechange.org.